collaboration of governments, an advocacy and strategy advisory business, universities, the Food Industry Centre and food and drink businesses coming together to help develop the UK and India's joint food and drink trade. I am Simon Dawson, Senior Lecturer and Programme Director at Cardiff Metropolitan University, and I am honoured to open this international webinar and welcome you all today to listen to this exciting series of presentations by leading expert representatives. Each session has been developed to last just under 30 minutes, which will be followed by a quick break, followed by the next session. As an attendee of this workshop, you will be emailed a CPD certificate of attendance and copy of presentations. The first session will begin in a few minutes and will comprise of a series of government presentations. Simon Crabbe, Head of Geographical Indicators Team from the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, will begin by focusing on the geographical indicators of food and drink in the UK. Simon took on the leadership of the Geographical Indicators team in autumn 2016, primarily to deliver a new GI scheme for when the UK leaves the EU and establish policy under the UK's EU exit negotiations on GIs and future trade relationships. Yashodhara Dasgupta, the Senior Trade Policy Advisor at the British High Commission in New Delhi, will highlight the recent market access successes and regulatory cooperation in India. Yashodhara works on resolving our top food and drink market access barriers via the UK-India Joint Working Group on Trade. She also leads the Technical Assistance Programme, working closely with relevant government departments in India expertise in areas such as food import control and standards. Shubhi Mishra, who leads the UK-India Business Council's Food and Drink Advocacy Group and Trade Promotion Services based in Delhi. Shubhi's hallmarks include an in-depth understanding of both Indian and related international trade policy issues, and she has worked on regulatory aspects related to agriculture, food and beverage sectors in close association with various ministries, agencies under Government of India and Indian trade bodies. And the final presentation in this session will be from Pragya Chaturvedi, IP Attache, will discuss trademarks and intellectual property in food. Pragya works in close collaboration with the Government of India to deliver the work plan between the UK Intellectual Property Office and Intellectual Property India. Pragya advises UK businesses on local intellectual property issues in India, which involves working with various government entities to raise IP awareness. Session 2 will begin with an overview of the 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre based at Cardiff Met University by Professor David Lloyd and Martin Sutherland. Professor David Lloyd works closely with both the private sector and Welsh Government, often advising on issues affecting the sector and influencing Welsh Government's food policy. During his tenure as Director of the Food Industry Centre, the unit has delivered over 100 knowledge transfer programmes using food graduates in industry, resulting in an increased turnover of £103 million for local companies in Wales, creating over 500 jobs and launching over 850 new products to the major UK retailers. Martin Sutherland is the Commercial and Marketing Director for the 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre. His role is to work with ambitious businesses to help them prosper. Session 3 will involve an overview of both Cardiff Met University and Lovely Professional University. This session will discuss the development of an MOU signed between both universities and how international research, development and global engagement are pivotal in the success, growth and development of both universities. I am Simon Dawson at Cardiff Met University. My role in the 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre focuses on food and drink businesses assisting with food safety, product development and quality matters. Adrian Baird is the Head of International Recruitment for Cardiff Met University. Professor Neeta Raj Sharma is the Additional Dean and Head of School of Bioengineering and Biosciences at Lovely Professional University in India, with 20 years of diverse experience in administration, teaching, research and industry in various multidisciplinary areas. During her industrial experience as Research and Development Manager at Ayush Pharmaceuticals, Himachal Pradesh, she standardised methods for increasing production of nutraceuticals and further developed new products, edible colours and nutraceutical-rich candies. Aman Mittal is a senior member of the Executive Management Team and the Director for International Affairs for Lovely Professional University. He has redefined leadership in the education sector with his acumen in educational marketing and raising the overall international index of the university. Under his leadership, LPU have won several awards for technology development, including an accolade for the development of one of Asia's largest Wi-Fi networks. The final session before we move to the questions and answers will look at the Indian food industry by expert Shaishav Mittal, who is the founder and CEO for Lovely Bake Studios. Shaishav's strong business acumen and a deep understanding of the consumer landscape led him to identify a large demand gap for 100% eggless bakery products, keeping in mind religious sentiments and growth health concerns. Along with an expert team of chefs and food specialists, he conceptualized an entire new range of eggless and baked products. This marketed the inception of Lovely Bake Studios, which is now one of India's fastest growing FMCG brands and an iconic eggless brand of bakery products. Lovely Bake Studios has recently obtained the contract manufacturing order for one of the largest coffee chains in Saudi Arabia and are in talks with many high-profile brands across the globe. I hope you enjoy each of the sessions that we've laid out for you and welcome any feedback following the workshop.
The United Kingdom has a long and proud tradition of regional food and drink specialities. Many of these are protected as geographical indications, and they range from the well-known, like Scotch whisky, Welsh lamb or Stilton cheese, to the rather more niche offerings, such as West Wales coracle court suin and Vale of Evesham asparagus. Whether globally renowned or strictly regional, the producers of these products are fiercely proud of their work and their produce. In total, the UK has 88 geographical indications, 78 agricultural and food products, 5 wines and 5 spirit drinks, and together they're worth about a quarter of the value of UK food and drink exports each year, or £5.5 billion. The UK's reputation for high quality food and drink is built on many aspects of its qualities, not least high animal welfare standards, good traceability within the food chain, and excellent taste. And it's to the last of these qualities that geographical indications lend their weight. GIs have long had legal protection in the UK, but in the 1990s, new bespoke EU legislation was introduced specifically to recognise the unique position and value of GIs. This legislation has been updated over the years, and you may be familiar with the latest versions of that legislation. If so, you'll be able to see that the rules that will apply in the UK from the start of next year, once we've published them, will look very similar to the EU rules. This is because we're basically adopting the EU legislation and adapting it for use in the UK. So to give you a little more detail about how the schemes will work in the future from next year, there will be 4 schemes, in fact, each one doing the same thing for a different category of goods. So there'll be one for agricultural and food products, one for wines, one for aromatized wines, and one for spirits. Non-agricultural products, such as handicrafts, for example, can be protected through trademarking legislation already, and that will remain the case next year. There will be 3 categories of geographical indication. The protected designation of origin, where the physical environment, including the climate, around where a product is made makes it what it is. The classic example here is wine, how the environment affects the taste of the grapes and therefore the flavour of the wine once it's been made. The second category is protected geographical indication, and this is much more about the culture and the history of a product and traditional methods of production. And the prime example for us is probably the Cornish pasty. And finally, there's a category called traditional speciality guaranteed. Strictly speaking, this isn't a geographical indication, although the names of these products often have geographical elements to them. What these guarantee is that the product has been made to a certain recipe and is therefore of a certain quality. They can, however, be made anywhere, meaning anywhere in the world, provided they meet the specification set out for the product. If you're interested in applying for GI protection in the UK, the process will be, in principle, fairly straightforward. There will be a phase where you submit an application and try to demonstrate that your product is worthy of protection as a geographical indication. Assuming it is, it will then be published, and that will be an opportunity for others to object or oppose your application. The authorities will then consider the application and the oppositions, any oppositions that are received, and if the application is ultimately successful, it will be registered. There's then a phase of producer assurance each year or every so often, and this is to make sure that people using the GI name are producing their products in accordance with the specifications set out in the legislation. And finally, we have in the UK enforcement based mainly at the point of sale, and it's intelligence led. So where we get a tip off that there are products on the market which don't comply with the legislation and with the specification for whatever the product is, then we ask and we expect trading standards officers or other local authority personnel to go and investigate and, if necessary, take enforcement action. Now that the UK has left the European Union, it's very keen to strengthen its relationships with trading partners across the world. We see GIs as being exemplars of the quality of food and drink that the UK produces, not just in protected products, but across the board. And therefore, they're very important in selling to the world what UK food and drink stands for. Our ambition is to bring these products to new groups of customers in other countries, both through new trade deals and through building on existing trading relationships. And by doing that, help build a reputation for the UK as a source of desirable food and drink.
Thank you for that. Our next presenter is Yashodhara Dasgupta from DIT. So if I could ask the presenter to unmute themselves and have their content ready to share, please.
Thanks, Simon. I hope that's visible.
Your content is now live, yes.
Brilliant, thank you. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on whichever side of the globe you're on. Many of you would hopefully know the Department of International Trade, but just giving you an overview of what we do. Essentially, we work to support UK businesses trade and or invest in India. Simultaneously, we also work to bring Indian investment to the UK. Our aim being shared prosperity, and that work is reflected in the deepening strength of the UK-India strategic partnership, which is already considerable. In 2019 itself, our overall trade increased by 10% to £24 billion. The UK is the second fastest growing G20 investor in India over the last 10 years. India is now the second largest source of investment in the UK in terms of the number of projects. Now, within this overall partnership, food and drink as a sector is among our priority ones. And this is in recognition of the UK companies' offer in this sector, combined with the fact that India provides significant market opportunities. It has a large market, no surprises there, adding to the fact that there is a growing consumer base with an increasing demand for international flavors. And as part of our role and mandate, DIT helps UK companies succeed in India in a number of different ways. First among that is in terms of market entry. We help UK companies interpret the Indian landscape, help make the right connections, particularly with the right local partners, and more broadly offer expertise and contacts through our extensive network and industry partners, both in India and in the UK. The other side of this is market access, or in other words, managing the regulatory landscape. Crucial in our role is providing G2G, government-to-government support to UK businesses. We have multiple mechanisms for doing so across the centre and the states, essentially acting as a bridge for UK business concerns with various Indian government stakeholders. At the central level, we, that is DIT, lead UK's trade policy discussions with India through the UK-India JETCO, Joint Economic and Trade Committee, and our joint working group on trade, which is between our respective trade ministries. As it happens, we held our 14th JETCO meeting on 24th July, just last week, focused on an enhanced trade partnership and moving sectoral barriers. And among, like I mentioned, our core sort of priority sectors was food and drinks in this as well. We also have the UK-India fast track mechanism, where we pick up specific company issues alongside the sort of sectoral work that I mentioned earlier with the Indian Industries Department. We have an extensive network of Deputy High Commissioners that engage and support conversations at a regional level, which, as you can imagine, India being a federal structure, that's also very important. And we work with industry partners on solutions as well. For example, we are currently working on a model licensing and labeling policy for sort of a unified approach across states. And in particular is also our support and our engagement with UKIBC, UK our impact in India. Now, the agriculture, food and industry in the UK, it's the UK's largest manufacturing industry, contributing. So can you still hear me? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can, Yashodhara.
Thanks. I just had a bit of a network issue. So as I was saying, the agriculture, food and drink industry is the UK's largest manufacturing industry. It contributes 120 billion to the UK economy. And for this reason, we are building UK as a partner of choice for India. We use ministers and senior officials to engage with decision makers and create a following of people who care about the issue and would multiply our voices, understand the sort of key sensitivities and how we should be engaging on them appropriately. And we've had a number of successes through a culmination of these approaches. Just a number that I can throw out, which is UK-India's trade in food and drink and agri-tech approximately stands at about 700 million pounds. Our HMG work, our government work, has already sort of delivered value to British companies worth around 250 million per year. This is based on industry estimates, by unlocking UK exports in areas like spirits, oats, poultry, lamb, and essentially sharing leading UK products with the world. We've supported many businesses export successfully to India, some of them including Diageo, William Grant, United Biscuits, Iceland, and are keen to obviously see more collaboration in this area. And as a result of this work, for example, Scotch whisky can now compete on a level playing field in the largest whisky market in the world, securing licensing and labeling approval for UK distilleries. Welsh lamb can be exported to India, delivering essentially high quality British produce right to the Indian consumer. And a core part of this exercise has been our relationship with key Indian regulators. Apart from raising market access asks, over the years, we've also been sharing UK expertise with India in a way that essentially helps manage food safety mandates whilst also being business friendly. And that aligns with the Indian government's vision on improving ease of doing business in the country. In the food and drink sector, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, essentially DEFRA, along with UK's Food Standards Agency, FSA, have held several policy dialogues, technical discussions, even knowledge sharing visits over the past few years with their counterparts in India, such as the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. And this is done with a view to essentially share best practices on regulatory frameworks and import control and clearance processes. And this has led overall to quite a number of positive changes. For example, in a major relief to UK exporters is the adoption of a risk-based profiling of food products, where imports are now classified based on high risk or low risk, as opposed to conducting checks and samplings across the board previously. We've also helped bring in changes in labeling requirement, essentially extending the scope of rectifiable labeling, which is information that was uniquely required by India to be put on labels at the country of origin itself, can now be stickered on an arrival at the ports here. Another major change was the waiver of shelf life, which is essentially the amount or the percentage of validity or shelf life that a product would have to have before it could be exported or allowed into the Indian market. Now, a lot of this work is obviously in collaboration and supported in parallel by DIT's business partner, the UK India Business Council. And UKIBC essentially works to raise the profile of brand UK in India through a number of different routes. Market intelligence and research is core identification and introduction to the right partners. Again, supporting with regulatory challenges, through delegations, bilateral, both ways, and of course, trade events showcasing what high quality UK food and drink products are and what's the value to Indian consumers. And then, of course, we also have the UKIBC Food and Drink Advocacy Group, which in turn provides inputs for the dialogue that I mentioned earlier, the government-to-government trade policy dialogue, really bringing in that business evidence to our government engagements. And overall, essentially promoting Indian and India and Indian opportunities in the UK as well through roadshows and webinars. The reason we're doing this together is to showcase how closely we work and leading to a lot of successes in the Indian market as well. So with that, I guess I will now hand over to my colleague from UKIBC to go through in more detail about the Indian market, the landscape in general, and some of the other successes we've had. So over to you, Shubhi. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashodhara. I believe my screen is visible now. Is it so?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So thank you so much for setting up the background, Yashodhara. And as Yashodhara mentioned, that we complement DIT's efforts in various sectors. Food and drink is one of the key segments where we work very closely with DIT. And our key mandate is to connect UK businesses with Indian stakeholders. Just to give you a brief overview of the Indian food and drink market, Indian food and drink overall is estimated at around 308 billion pound and is projected to grow at a CAGR of 18 to 20%. Food and drink, needless to say, and especially we are seeing this during current crisis time, is an epitome sector where a number of policy and regulatory interventions were made, and sector definitely was defined as an essential sector. It is continuing to be heavy contributors toward the GDP of India with 14% in manufacturing, 13% of Indian exports, and 6% of the total industrial investment. The food and drink sector is primarily segmented based on, we have just done this a small chart for you to showcase that what kind of consumption patterns are seen in India. A lot of Indians are vegetarian based on the religious observations, but that a lot number is limited only to 30%. So meat, fish, fruits and vegetables and oil, they contribute towards about 40% of the household consumption. And we can clearly see the changing dynamics that people are shifting more towards high value food products, convenience food products and healthful items. The key area of export opportunities which we have identified based on our continued discussion with the stakeholders both in India and UK remain dairy products, health and nutritional products, gluten-free products, other packaged food items and high value food products. The regulatory landscape in India has evolved quite a lot in recent past, and there have been some extreme intervention which were made by Government of India to support the businesses, not only from the domestic market but the international players as well. As my colleague Yashodhara highlighted some of the introductory and progressive changes which were introduced, like introduction of the risk management system, or giving waiver from certain labeling requirements which were pretty unique to India so far. The food and drink regulatory landscape, however, is subjected to multiple regulatory authorities like Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, Legal Metrology Department, Animal and Plant Quarantine, APIDA for organic food items, and others. This is our first and foremost advice to all the UK exporters who are willing to enter into Indian market, is to identify that where does your product fit into in terms of your custom tariff requirement, your tax slab, and also the regulatory requirements. Most of the Indian businesses you get introduced to are quite pro. However, we are more than willing and happy to support your queries in that line. And if you believe that there are certain requirements which are very India specific and you need some knowledge sharing on that line, we are more than happy to do so. For any goods which are coming into India, the importers or their representatives have authority to do pre-arrival document review for a quick clearance of the goods, and single window integration facility is now provided, so you don't have to run to all the different government departments. However, your products can, your information can be submitted via PADR at one platform, and then through the SWIFT channel, which is like a single window clearance, your goods can get a clearance. There is a list of documents which we have compiled here for you, which is necessary to be filed along with the goods coming in. During the current timeline of COVID-19 crisis, when country is unlocking, there is an added requirement, which is that of a certificate from the exporter and the importer stating that your goods should be free from COVID contamination. You do not need a valid approval or a valid certificate supported by a government agency. It can be it can be just a statement on your letterhead. There are certain fees which is charged based on the goods which you are bringing in and the testing which they undergo. In recent past, we have worked very closely with the UK companies, Indian stakeholders, Indian associations, and others to find a space for food and drink business, and via which we were able to present certain market access issues which were pertaining to the major players and even the small players, and were able to achieve some great successes. To top up to what Yashodhara presented a while ago, we recently, the Government of India's Food Safety and Standards Authority of India gave cognizance to our request of rectifying the requirement of nutritional information on alcoholic beverages. There was an India-specific requirement of adding Hindi nomenclature to the whole and refined wheat flour. FSSAI has agreed to waive that off. One of the massive wins which we had is that liquor in India is a state subject, and Government of Maharashtra issued 30 notifications to support ease of doing business, specifically for the liquor sector. We work very closely with FSSAI to achieve standards, to get published standards for the alcohol-free beer. Apart from that, during the current lockdown phase, there were several issues which cropped up, and against our representations and against our interaction with the support of our colleagues from DIT as well, we were able to achieve some massive wins, like certain states allowed home delivery of alcoholic beverages. To top that up, state of West Bengal is working towards home delivery of liquor. States have granted operational permits to alcobev sectors. Waiver from detention and demurrage charges was granted by Ministry of Shipping, which was a huge relaxation for major businesses, and interstate movement of goods by Ministry of Home Affairs. Some of these interventions came on, and FSSAI, Customs Department, and others have gone more flexible in terms of the documentation requirements. They have been more upcoming in accepting the electronic copy of documents, be it for the health certificates, be it for the bill of landing and others. I'll just sum us up at that note, and that if for any of the UK businesses willing to find a space in Indian market, please feel free to stay in touch with us. I have just shared the coordinates for Secretary of Trade from GIT Jeevan Binder, Yashodhara Dasgupta, and myself, and we're more than happy to assist you wherever we can for you to be able to find a better marketplace in India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shubhi. Our next presenter is Pragya Chaturvedi from the UK IPO. So if I can ask Pragya to unmute herself and have her content ready to share, please.
Thank you, Ed.
Your content doesn't seem to be available, Pragya. I think you may need to press the share button. There we go. There we go. It's now live. Thank you.
Okay. Great. So, greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining today. In my presentation, I'm going to walk through the IP elements in the food and drink industry and how the IP system in India supports them. So the idea behind IP is to protect intellectual creations, and that can take many forms. So coming to the first part, which elements of the food and drink industry have IP in them? There can be many forms. For example, brand names, logos, food packaging, food and drink products themselves, like we see here, wines, cheeses, sweets, snacks, and so on, or even recipes. These different components can form different types of IP. So I'm going to start with trademarks. Trademarks are marks which can be graphically represented and which can differentiate your business from other businesses. So before going into a little more detail into trademarks, I will first discuss why trademarks are important for any business, including the food industry. So there are many functions that trademarks serve. As you see here, first is differentiation. So if I go into a supermarket and if I want to pick out a packet of biscuits, it's the packaging, it's the logos and names on the packaging itself that will help me choose my preferred brand. And that is how trademarks help customers to differentiate between the brands of their choice. Second is the brand loyalty, which trademarks establish. So let's say I have been a fan of Cadbury chocolates, and it will be unlikely that I will switch to any other brand unless that brand offers me better taste, better quality, better value for my money, or all of them. So that's how trademarks help businesses in establishing consumers' loyalty towards the brand. Then if the customers like your product, they will come to associate your product with a particular quality, and that is how trademarks also establish the quality of a particular brand. Then identifying the origins of the product. So you see here dairy milk, or let's say Kit Kat. If I hear Kit Kat, I'll think Nestle, and that is how the trademark will help a customer identify that this product is coming from a particular business, and that way they can make an informed decision. Going into the details of trademark registration. So before going into the details of trademark registration, I will take a quick detour into marks that cannot be registered. So in India, the trademark law in India lists many reasons why the registration of your trademark can be refused or even met with an objection. So they can, I'm just listing some few reasons. So it will be difficult to get registration for your trademark, or you might get an objection in your application if the trademark describes the type of the product, the quality or the quantity of the product, its purpose, and so on. Or if it cannot distinguish your product or service from those of other businesses, because that is one of the main functions of the trademark. Or if it can deceive the public, or if it can hurt religious sentiments, it's scandalous, or for that matter, if its use is prohibited by any other law, then its registration will be refused. Coming to registrable marks. So mark can be many things. It can be the shape of a product, like you see here. This can be a shape trademark, or these little mountain shapes on the Toblerone chocolate. That is also a shape trademark. So what is interesting here is that there was a case where KitKat lost the case for registration of its unique four-finger design. Why? Because a trademark can be registered as a shape only if it doesn't serve a function, and that particular KitKat shape serves a particular function because it makes it easier to break it into those singular bars. So that's why that is no longer a trademark, but yeah, the Toblerone shape, that doesn't serve any such function, and that's why that is a shape trademark. Then we have the brand names, like we see here, Amul, Coca-Cola, Oreo. These are examples of trademarks. Then the logos themselves, they are trademarks too. Then many of us in India will remember the Pepsi slogan, the Hindi phrase, "Ye dil mange more." So if it can distinguish your product and give it a distinctive identity, then that is also registrable as a trademark. We also have something called certification marks. So what certification marks do is indicate the quality of a particular product. For example, we have a certification mark for organically farmed products here in India and many others. So we have around 45 classes of goods and services here in India in which you can register your trademark. Coming to the registration process, we have similar systems in UK and India. Trademark registration is not compulsory, but it is advisable for many reasons. So one very important reason is that if your trademark is registered, you can file a case for infringement of your trademark if someone is misusing it. And if you have, if your trademark is not registered, you can still file a case, but then there will be a much higher burden of proof on you to prove that you have suffered suffered any kind of damage because of someone misusing your trademark. So for that one reason itself, it's advisable to get registration for your trademarks. Another important factor to remember is that even if you have a registered trademark in the UK, it will not be automatically registered in India. And if you want to trade in India and you are looking for trademark protection, then you need to separately register it. That can be done either through the trademark registry in India or through the international Madrid system, which allows you to file in more than one country at once. So that's it about the trademarks. Moving on to GIs. So GIs are kind of marks which signify that a product belongs to a particular region and it has some qualities, some special characteristics because it originates from that particular geographical region. So usually GI products are known by the name of the place where they originate from, but that's not always the case. So as you see in India, if we talk about GIs in the food and drink industry, here just a few examples. We have the Alfonso mango, we have the basmati rice, we have some types of sweets. We have this special alcoholic drink that is very commonly available in the state of Goa, and that is made from cashews. That is also a GI. We have now the world famous Darjeeling tea, coffee beans, some savory snacks, and so on. There's a large number of food related GIs here in India. So the GI registry oversees all types of GIs, and that functions under the Indian IP office. And what is different about GIs is they are a collective and community owned right. So it doesn't belong to any single person, but it belongs to a community as a whole. And for GI protection, it is mandatory to register the GI. And the registration, the application can be made to the GI registry, and then there is a 4 or 5 step registration process where you apply and they examine the registration application. It's open for objections from the public, and after registration, it's published in a manual. So moving on to the last part on trade secrets. So what is a trade secret? A trade secret is any kind of confidential information which gives your business an edge over your competitors. It can be a secret recipe like the Coca-Cola formula, or the famous but not known KFC herbs and spices recipe, the Krispy Kreme recipe for their glazed donuts, and so on. It can also be a client list, supplier details, advertising strategies, profile of consumers, basically anything that can give your business an edge over your competitors. So it's important to remember that if you're sharing trade secrets with someone, it's important to do that with the help of watertight non-disclosure agreements. And that has certain benefits of using non-disclosure agreements to protect your confidential information on trade secrets. First is the protection is virtually unlimited because it ends only if the information becomes public. And second, it's also more effective and efficient in terms of both time and cost. So in India, while we don't have any separate law for protecting trade secrets, but you have remedies under the contract law. If you sign a non-disclosure agreement with someone and if they breach the contract, you can go to the court seeking remedies for breach of that contract. And in other cases, if someone misuses your trademark, you still have remedies under common law. So you have injunctions where you can stop the other party from misusing your confidential information or trade secrets, and you can also seek damages for their actions. With this, I would like to finish with some quick takeaway tips. So first is if you are looking for trading in India and if you want protection of for your trademark, it's advisable to make a quick search of the Trademark Office database to see if there's an identical or similar trademark that already exists. If it does not, well and good, but if it does, then consider taking the help of legal professionals to discuss next steps. Next is when you share trade secrets, make sure they're under watertight NDAs, and for sharing of any other type of IP, very, very carefully check the terms of the agreements. So I would like to end here by saying that I'm here for any IP support that your business needs here in India, and my colleagues in the UK for any IP support back there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pragya. We'll move straight on to our second session, which is 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre. And our first presenter is Professor David Lloyd. So if I can ask the speaker to unmute themselves and share their desktop and enter PowerPoint presentation mode.
Can you see that?
Yeah, if you go into and start slideshow, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. As I said, my name is David Lloyd. I'm Director of the Food Industry Centre, 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre at Cardiff Metropolitan University. And in the next 10 minutes or so, I just want to give you a very, very brief history of the centre and its aims and an overview of the type of work that it undertakes. The university itself is 150 years old, 16,000 students globally, and has 5 academic schools. The Food Industry Centre sits as a unit within the School of Sport and Health Sciences. This is the Food Industry Centre. It's a £5 million build, which was designed and developed and opened in 2009, and has a series of functions. On the ground floor is a pilot scale plant with 4 key areas, and acts as an exemplar for startup companies looking to design their own sites. On the second floor, we have a series of test kitchens, development kitchens, sensory evaluation suites, and it houses the academics related to food who sit within the School of Health Sciences. On the next floor, then, we have a biomedical science laboratories who look at various impacts of diet and environment on cellular health. The Food Industry Centre has, over its 25-year history, looked always to engage with partners, and some of the partners that we have at the moment are there on the slide. Particularly interesting one to us is the top left-hand corner, which is Food Innovation Wales. We work with 2 other food centres in Wales to form a brand called Food Innovation Wales, but it allows a pan-Wales delivery of technical, scientific and food sector analysis for the good of the food sector in Wales, and we support a whole series of companies. You can see there over 150 companies per year engaged by the Food Industry Centre. In total, with the 3 centres of Food Innovation Wales, we're well in excess of 300 food companies. And there are about 900 to 1,000 food companies in Wales. So we're really penetrating to a great degree a large percentage of the sector. We have international links, obviously with India, but also with Institute of Food Safety and Health at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. We have undertaken master's programs at the University of Hong Kong. And then we have stakeholders closer to home in the UK, like the Food Standards Agency, Food and Drink Industry Board, which is the Welsh Government's advisory board to the Minister, and to the Food and Drink Federation based in London. Our 4 priorities. On the left-hand side, you see the academic side of things in the research and teaching, and the Food Centre. One of the critical areas why the Food Centre was set up was to bring the expertise of academics and the industrial employees within the centre closer to industry. And in so doing, we've formed a very strong relationship with the Welsh Government Food Division in the past 10 years, helping them to firstly develop strategies which are relevant to the industry, but relevant to the consumer and the people of Wales, but also to act as a deliverer on some of the innovation strategies needed to develop the goals set out by Welsh Government in its own strategic directions. So in terms of industry support, which is basically the critical point of what we do, it spans a very wide variety of expertise. Within the centre, there are in the region of 45 staff, and then we link with the academic staff who are food related, and more with health related, whether that be nutritionists, dietitians or biomedical scientists, because they're becoming ever more integrated. But we work on anything from factory design with potentially inward investors into the into Wales. Then we have worked closely with inward investors into Wales, helping them to find sites and also helping to design the site thereafter to ensure that it's as compliant as can be with international standards. Factory hygiene, more and more important, particularly in the current climate, is something in which we have a 20-year history. Waste reduction is an ever increasing area because we look to go to factory floors and reduce waste at source, because that adds directly to the profit margins of food companies, whilst reducing the impact on the environment. And then new and existing product development. So in terms of new product development, obviously we look to establish what the trends are in the sector, particularly around things like healthier eating, but also to reformulate products when certain ingredients become unavailable, or indeed to look at improved nutritional levels. And then labelling legislation, particularly important when dealing with export, but also when facing things like Brexit and rapid law changes, then we need that expertise particularly to keep abreast of the ever-changing situation. Material sourcing, packaging technology are all areas where we have expertise, and widely used facility at the university and at the centre is sensory analysis. We have Wales's largest sensory evaluation suite with 10 sensory booths, and this has been used extensively in new product development to establish whether a product proposed for the market fits the market and whether consumers would buy it, but also because we have a very wide-ranging student base from across the world. And so if a Welsh company is looking to establish a product abroad, then the sensory evaluation suite with people from that area of the globe can be used to assess how it would feature in the foreign market. The reverse also applies, of course, in that Indian companies looking to launch a product in Wales can also use that, and we will analyse what their products are viewed by the British consumer. Undoubtedly, the cornerstone of our work relates around food safety, hazard analysis, HACCP, and in particular accreditations. It's fair to say, I think, that we are the most applied university in the United Kingdom for taking companies through the various stages of third-party food safety accreditation, from SALSA, which is a safe local sourcing accreditation used on a regional basis for the major retailers, all the way through to the BRCG standard, which is of course globally recognised and part of the GFSI suite of accreditations, which allows export to various export markets. In terms of industry support, commercial market analysis is critical, and it's an area where we've improved dramatically in the recent years, in particular thanks to Martin Sutherland for that. When developing a new product, it's important that markets are analysed, so that you know that you have a product which is going to work in that market. And important for companies to develop market strategies and plans. And we work with governments on trade engagement, visits to various parts of the world, on export support. And I'll show you a picture of Pell just in my final slide to explain that slightly more. In most cases, these interventions are done through knowledge transfer mechanisms, and we'll talk a little more about that later in the presentation. The research at the university focuses on significant and specific areas. The food safety group, we have for many years worked on food safety culture. In fact, we're one of the first universities in the world to define the phrase food safety culture in conjunction with the Disney Corporation in Florida. We have worked for 20 years on looking at food safety culture and behaviour related to food safety, and still have a significant number of researchers who work within that field and are globally recognised. We look at a domestic element because we have built a domestic kitchen within our research area, and we look at the behaviour of the consumer in relation to food safety. And also in healthcare, we were one of the first universities in the world to look at food safety related issues in relation to cancer patients and their family and caregivers and the people who would be making them the food, because obviously immunosuppressed patients are more susceptible to food poisoning and the impact of food poisoning. And we've done things around the likes of dental health and nutrition, and also including influence in dietary change in things like in schools. So wide-ranging research in nutrition and in food safety. This is a group of photographs which just show key areas of the centre. We are ever expanding in our bakery expertise, and have an excellent head of baking who works extensively with bakeries across Wales, but also outreaches to the rest of the UK, and has a good history across the globe in terms of understanding bakery and bakery problems. And particularly important, the work at the Food Industry Centre, because like many Western countries, British universities have for many years struggled to recruit onto food science programmes, whereas the jobs and the roles that are available within the UK are extensive and ever growing, quite frankly. But the work undertaken at the centre in bakery, in the consumer science kitchens, and in the development kitchens is essential, partly to fill that gap left by the lack of people entering the food sector. We do within the centre have a low care, a high care area, a bakery and a confectionery suite, all built in such a way to allow the process flows. But that acts as a very good exemplar to companies who are looking to develop their process sites within Wales, because it takes into account all the key process flows that one has to consider when developing a food company, such as people flow, product flow, drains, waste, and airflow. So people looking to develop a food company can come into the centre and see real life examples of the type of controls that are needed, even at the factory design stage. I'm finished with this slide, which is our perceptual experience laboratory. This is significant and relatively new, and what it allows us to do is to take brands and to place them into a virtual supermarket at a 270-degree screen. And with tracker glasses, you can see on the right-hand side of this slide the retinal movement of a potential consumer. So one can understand whether the brand image is doing what it should do and attracting the attention of the consumer. But it also allows you to adjust your brand and to establish whether that new potential brand would work before you spend significant amounts of money on any rebranding exercise. It can also be used and has been used for training purposes for food safety, where you can put the image, sounds, smells, and even temperature of, say, a bakery or a chilled food processing site. You can establish 10 or 12 faults which are consistent every time a trainee walks into the screen area, so that you can establish how well a trainee has identified faults which exist within a certain environment, and it's constant. So there's no it acts as a benchmark for the training. I think at this point I hand over to Martin Sutherland.
Thanks, David. If I can ask Martin to unmute himself and share his desktop and enter presentation mode, please.
Okay, can you see that screen?
It's not showing up as your PowerPoint, Martin. It's your desktop that is showing up.
Just bear with me. Is that one showing?
Yes, that is, you just now need to enter slide presentation mode, please.
Okay, fine. Okay, we good? Okay. Can you hear me, Ed? Is that clear?
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you, Martin.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, David. As David said, I'm Martin Sutherland. I'm a colleague of David's at the Food Industry Centre, and I tend to more specialise in these commercial and marketing side of the food industry. In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to provide a very quick introduction to the food industry with a real focus on the supermarket sector. Just a couple of some data just to put in context the UK food industry. It's the biggest manufacturing sector in the country. It's employing over 430,000 people, huge turnover for the UK, and it's accounting for about 20% of UK manufacturing. Now, what's interesting for the suppliers is that 96% of all the UK's food and drink companies are actually SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. So there are plenty of opportunities in the UK food industry for the smaller manufacturers to prosper. Now, in terms of spend, spending about £168 billion in 2019, and about 70% of those sales were going through the grocery or the retail sector. Now, that sector is dominated by the supermarkets, but there are also sales going through the independent retailers, and this channel, the independent channel, tends to be supplied by the wholesalers and the cash and carries. So I'm going to spend most of the rest of the presentation talking about the retail sector, the supermarket sector. Now, the out-of-home sector pre-COVID was growing rapidly. It was really a success story as more and more people started to eat out of home at places like McDonald's, at Pizza Express, or buying takeaway foods from places like Subway. Now, sadly, as it's happened all around the world, that out-of-home sector has been pretty devastated by COVID. And so at the moment, if I was planning to enter the UK as a new supplier, I'm not sure if I'd be focusing on that particular sector, because it's going to be very difficult to predict which companies are going to prosper, which ones sadly won't reopen. And it is a complex sector to enter. So just a slide to show how in the UK we break down that food service sector. It's broadly divided into three areas: the retail, travel and leisure sector, the hotel, pubs and restaurant sector, and the contract sector. So if we start on the left-hand side, the retail sector, it includes outlets such as coffee shops, cricket stadia, sports clubs, airports. So a really diverse group of outlets for suppliers to target. The hotel, pubs and restaurants are sort of self-explanatory, but that would include everything from top-end restaurants in London through to the likes of McDonald's and fast food outlets. The contract sector tends to be a sector very much driven by price, because this is a sector that includes schools, it includes prisons, it includes companies, in-house catering. So a very complex sector, lots and lots of outlets. And the challenge for suppliers wanting to prosper in this sector is to understand the complex routes to market, which often involve wholesalers, delivered wholesalers, independent brokers and distributors. So there are plenty of opportunities in this sector, hopefully post-COVID, but it is a complex sector to enter. Now, the retail sector, in contrast, the top 5 supermarkets, and there may be some familiar names there, people like Tesco's, Asda, part of the Walmart empire, those top 5 supermarkets account for 65% share. So it's a very concentrated sector full of very large businesses who really dominate the grocery retail industry. You'll see that the numbers in black with the plus signs in front of them, those numbers are purely down to the COVID effect, as the food service, the eating out of home sectors closed and slowly reopening. Obviously, a lot of people have switched into buying food from the retail sector. Now, across the bottom, some examples of some of the logos of the companies that dominate. So Tesco's being the biggest, Sainsbury's and Asda then being second and third, and then names such as Aldi and Lidl, who in recent years have grown significantly within the UK, which has fundamentally changed the nature of the retail sector within Great Britain. Just want to give you a flavour of what the UK supermarkets are like, and then also I'll provide a few tips on if you're thinking of entering this sector. But I think it's worth going into the UK sector very much with your eyes open. It's been described as probably the most sophisticated supermarket sector in the world. And I used to work for Tesco's, and when at Tesco's, it was always a challenge to find retailers around the world that we could learn from, because often, without being arrogant about it, Tesco's were doing it as well as anybody else was in the world. So you're entering into a sector that is as sophisticated and as professional as any retailer out there. Very innovative, such as robotic warehousing. There's an online retailer called Ocado who have pioneered robotic warehousing. So all the food is picked by robots. It's then dropped into delivery vans, and then at the moment it's still driven by humans, but in the future probably the vans, the lorries will be driven by robots. So yeah, it's a very innovative sector. It's very competitive, resulting in very low margins, and that's been one of the barriers to overseas supermarkets entering and prospering in the UK. So it's a sector that has very low margins, which again puts lots of demands on its supplier base. So suppliers who aren't able to meet the margin expectations of the retailers will struggle. Part of the added challenges in the UK, own label is very important. Supermarkets such as Sainsbury's and Tesco's, they view own label as a good way of differentiating their offer, but also a good way of improving their margins, because they're not having to give the higher prices to the branded suppliers. So Tesco's, Asda, Morrison's, etc., will put a great emphasis on developing and prioritising their own label. So as the Financial Times said just earlier this month, you know, the UK supermarket industry is known for wafer-thin margins and cutthroat competition. Now, within the sector, there is probably overcapacity. In the short term, that's been addressed by the increases caused by COVID, but you may have been aware of the attempted merger between Sainsbury's and Asda, and by all accounts, that proposed merger was initiated by Walmart, who were taking a different view on whether or not UK was a priority for them or not. That merger was stopped by the government because of problems with competition, but I think that the learning there that even a business as successful as Walmart, the biggest retailer in the world, they have really struggled in the UK to prosper. Now, supermarkets are increasingly adopting an omni-channel strategy, which simply means online, lots of different retail store formats such as convenience, petrol forecourts. People like Tesco's are also very big into banking, into insurance. And so these are really big, complex businesses. And as a result of that, they demand a lot from their suppliers. And that's developed within the UK and globally a very strong supplier base. So to be a supplier to the supermarkets, the supplier has to be very good, has to be very professional, very lean, and very efficient. And one of the things that supermarkets will demand of their suppliers is an understanding of the market and good use of data. So an example of this is from Kantar. Kantar provide most of the data for suppliers in the UK. And this is just a snapshot. This is data that we have access to at the university, showing the last 12 weeks sales up until the 12th of July in a number of sectors. And I thought it'd be interesting and fun just to see which sectors have sort of done well during COVID. And not surprisingly, biscuits have done incredibly well as we're all working at home. So sales are up 68 million. Interestingly, chocolate biscuit bars are doing very well, but the healthier ones aren't. So we can see a looming obesity crisis in the UK caused by lockdown. You can also see the growth of instant coffee, of tea, peanut butter and flour. Simple example there, but within this sector, suppliers are expected to understand the data, have access to the data in order to provide insight and information and new ideas to their retail customers. Now, the introduction of Aldi and Lidl into the UK, which happened about 30 years ago, but only in the last 10 years has really taken off, has resulted in even further pressure on ranges. So ranges are being made smaller, and also a move to something called everyday low prices, which is where the supermarkets are reducing their promotional activity in order to invest the margin into lower prices to match the lower prices of the discounters. Online is in double-digit growth, and that's likely to continue. And we're seeing consumers switching to making more frequent shopping trips, spending slightly less on each shopping trip. Since COVID, there's been a massive increase in online, but that's had an impact on retailers' profits because online retailing dilutes the margins for supermarkets because of the need for the staff to pick the products and then the cost of delivery. So it's going to be interesting to see how online matures and continues to develop post-COVID. So if we look at the supply in the UK supermarkets, a few tips if you're thinking of supplying the UK supermarkets. Firstly, develop a, let's get rid of that. Supplying the UK supermarkets. Firstly, take a long-term view. I was involved at Tesco's when Tropicana, now owned by Pepsi, first launched in the UK. It took them a few years to become established. It's unlikely that any supplier is going to become an overnight success. And be very focused on which channels and outlets to target. Is it a convenience-related product? Is it one actually that will do very well online? So be quite targeted. And also, which sort of supermarket are you targeting? Is it an upmarket premium one or one of the discounters? This has been touched on before, but food safety accreditation is mandatory. The UK supermarkets are probably the most rigorous and demanding when it comes to food safety. So global accreditations and even the retailers' own schemes are often mandatory. Really important to have a strong proposition. So just copying an existing product won't get you onto shelf. So the product's going to have to be one of better value, better quality, unique, strong brand. It's really going to have to be different in order to convince the retail buyer to remove an existing product from their shelves. And it's also always helpful to have an evidence of strong sales and profitability from other channels or other markets. In terms of some detail, supermarkets would be looking to have at least a 40% margin from your product, and that does vary by channel. But if you're building a business plan, I would assume at least 40% margin, and also the building costs for promotional programs such as price reductions or sampling in store. We also would advocate not building your business model assuming regular price increases. So in developing that business model, assume that there won't be any price increases for at least 2 years. And if your business model is still viable, great. If it isn't, need to review the costings. Legal requirements, essential that packaging, labelling requirements are met. It's a very costly and very damaging to have something like a product recall because an allergen hasn't been listed properly on packaging, and would really advocate investing time and money to get the right advice to ensure your packaging is compliant. Supermarkets will take a very dim view of a product recall. It's also really important to have a pipeline of innovation and new products. Supermarket buyers will expect not just the products you have available now, but what are your plans for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months time. And in terms of establishing in the UK, consider perhaps partnering with a UK company. They may already have an account team that have the contacts with buyers who can make those initial introductions to you. So before investing heavily in a UK sales team and production resource, maybe there's an opportunity to partner with a UK company. So that's it from my session, Ed.
Thanks, Martin. We're going to have a 2-minute break before the next session, which is going to be session 3 on collaboration with 3 universities. Simon Dawson is going to be our next presenter. I do just want to flag that we're having a few technical issues with Lovely Professional University and Lovely Bake Studios. So we are going to be arranging a webinar in future at a later date with those presenters once those issues have been resolved. So there will now just be a 2-minute break, and then we'll be back in 2 minutes with Simon Dawson. Thank you. Thank you. So we're now going to start our third session on collaboration through universities, and our first presenter is Simon Dawson, Senior Lecturer for Food Science and Technology from Cardiff Met University. So I can ask Simon to unmute himself and then he can begin his presentation, please. Simon, you're still muted. Yep, you're unmuted now. Thanks, Simon.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, am I unmuted now? You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, Simon.
Great, thank you. Hello. Good day and welcome. I am Simon Dawson and I will be taking you through the first part of session 3, which will focus on collaboration through universities. This will be followed by our Head of International Recruitment, Adrian Baird, and then we will move over to our friends at lovely Professional University in India. In this presentation, I have a short video to play for you highlighting our food science department here at Cardiff Met. We will then move over to some slides to give you an overview of our university itself, and then we will look more specifically at the department I work in and some research and innovation we are focusing on. This will be followed by the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with Lovely Professional University, and I will end on how we can work with you in your business through research, development and collaboration. So that video that you just seen was shot both professionally and by our food science students. Some of the video shows our students with Richard Parks, an ex-national Welsh rugby player, current TV presenter and extreme athlete. He contacted our department in 2019 to help support him on his latest venture to attempt to beat the world record of skiing unsupported to the South Pole. Our students developed and made the food he survived on, and he actually beat the British record in December just gone and the world record for total distance skied. Cardiff Met is one of 3 universities in Cardiff, which is home to nearly 66,000 students. It is the only university in Wales that supports undergraduate and postgraduate food science and technology programmes, and with the food and drink industry a rising start in the Welsh economy, the Welsh Government wants to increase sales by 30% to £7 billion. Our food science course offers students the ability to do food industry internship and take part in national and international field trips. Students have been to many companies, trade shows and conferences. We have taken groups to Beijing and Tianjin in China, Chicago in the US, Thessalonica in Greece, and most recently our students and some lecturers spent a week at lovely Professional University. The photograph shown here is one of our Indian international students, Rhythm, who obtained an internship at Nestle Dubai in their product development team. Our food science department and students work closely with the 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre and have helped support a diverse range of food business projects over the years. Students have even received bursaries, including money and Apple iPads in the past for the work that they have done with local food businesses. We teach food science and technology full-time and part-time to undergraduate and postgraduate students. We also have an online postgraduate programme for those currently working in the food industry anywhere in the world that want to upskill their knowledge and scientific skills. Our programmes are constantly evolving with the help of the Food Industry Centre to meet the needs of food businesses of today and tomorrow. This ensures that when students leave, they are snatched up very quickly as they meet and often exceed the job requirements. Some of the key areas we cover include food safety and quality management, so we ensure GFSI benchmark accreditation systems such as the BRCGS, IFS, FSSC and UK retailer standards along with HACCP are embedded into the programme. We work closely with food businesses to give students official food product briefs from companies so they can develop and launch new products based on the company's requirements. This is completely free for food businesses, and if anyone is interested in taking part this year or future years, please get in contact with me so we can discuss further. In addition, we get the students to work in a range of food micro and chemistry laboratories so they get to understand the intricacies of what makes up food and drink products along with shelf life and product safety. As our campus houses the Food Industry Centre, students work with a wide range of food processing units including baking, confectionery, canning, pasteurisation, packaging, smoking, freeze drying and many others. To ensure our university is recognised internationally, our food science teaching and research team often travel internationally, presenting at conferences, giving guest lectures and supporting universities in many other countries. As part of my role, I have presented internationally in Canada, Europe and India, which I frequent regularly. In 2018, I was invited to attend and give a series of lectures on food safety and crisis management at Lovely Professional University. Their enthusiasm and drive are seen throughout their university. Students are engaged and ask lots of questions, and their teaching team is very supportive of collaboration. As a result, in the following year, during my second visit to LPU, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding cementing our collaboration on future research, development and lecturing. Shortly after my visit, we received outreach mobility funding, and LPU opened their arms to Cardiff Met students visiting them and taking part in a series of workshops, lectures and even morning yoga sessions. We have a wide range of postgraduate food science students each year from many countries around the world, and this gives you and your business an excellent opportunity for potential research and development, supported by our lecturing and postdoctoral food research teams. The research can be collaborative between our university and Lovely Professional University, allowing the best minds from both universities supporting you and your business. Grants and funding opportunities often become available depending on your company, location and project required. UKRI, STFC Food Network Plus and Knowledge Transfer Network are just 3 examples where research grants are often available to help support collaboration between food businesses and universities. So if interested, please visit one of their corresponding websites for available opportunities. So if you are interested in any of the collaborative research ideas, please email me at sdawson@cardiffmet.ac.uk for further information and to discuss any ideas you might have. These would need to be finalised by early September each year to allow us to prepare them for the students' arrival. Projects will then run from October till July the following year. So thank you for listening, and I will now hand over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Simon. Our next presenter is Adrian Baird from Cardiff Met University. So if I can ask Adrian to unmute himself and share his presentation, please, and enter presentation mode.
Okay. Can you see this?
Yeah, and we can hear you as well, Adrian.
Perfect. So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Adrian Baird, and I'm the head of international recruitment. And I'll be taking you through the next part of collaboration through universities. In this presentation, I'll provide an overview of global engagement activity at Cardiff Met, outlining the ways that we collaborate with universities, engage with students and government bodies worldwide. Our global engagement operation can be broken down into the 4 following areas of work: international recruitment, transnational education, global outreach, and study and work abroad. A high-performing unit that supports a university in its internationalisation strategy, Cardiff Met recently became the first UK university to be awarded the Comprehensive Internationalisation Badge by the IAU. The badge is the association's highest accolade. So starting with international recruitment at Cardiff Metropolitan University, the international student population makes up approximately 15% of the student body on campus, with a large percentage of that at postgraduate taught level. We recruit from over 100 countries and through various channels, including agents, partner universities, and government sponsors. All of this is supported by our specialist staff that's based in Cardiff and overseas. And in the picture, you'll see our overseas offices in China, Nigeria, India, and Vietnam. And we have a few more that are going to be opening this year. India is now our largest market for international students, having overtaken China in the 1920 academic year. Our MSc in Food Science Technology internship has seen exponential growth, attracting students from all over the world, in particular India. The opportunity to work as part of this programme has proved very appealing, and we have some excellent students that are commencing internships at UK companies and around the world. The demand for food science in India has continued to grow as Cardiff Met works with a growing number of universities across the country, providing academic support through guest lectures and the establishment of progression agreements. Transnational education, or TNE as it's widely known, this is where the university offers Cardiff Met programmes via different models at partner universities overseas. Currently, there are over 15 TNE partners worldwide, with over 9,000 students enrolled. This is nearly equal to the total number of students based in the Cardiff campus. The TNE operation is offered in a wide number of countries, including India. Currently, our partner in Greece offers the BSc Honours in Food Science and Technology and an MSc New Food Product and Business Development. There is a growing demand amongst the current and prospective TNE partners to offer programmes within this field. The map here just highlights the wide network that we have, both TNE and global partners around the world. Social responsibility, both locally and globally, underpins the work of Cardiff Met. Through our global outreach operation, we support and promote the development of higher education systems around the world through projects that work with individuals, institutions, and governments in areas including internationalisation, leadership, and quality systems. Most recently, we worked on a British Council funded project fostering a culture of quality at one of our TNE partners. This supported their quality assurance and quality enhancement processes. We also provide study and work opportunities for both our students and staff, utilising the multiple sources of funding that are available. Some of it being very comprehensive, covering participation and travel costs. It helps give our students the global outlook that they desire, but it also supports the work at our partner institutions by providing more opportunities to engage. All of this is what helps us develop collaborations that are at a multi-level, so they can support student and staff integration. It can help them develop joint research, promote progression to Cardiff Met University for study, engage in funded projects to enhance education systems, and on occasion, but not always, look to develop transnational education. The picture you see on the slide is that of a very successful food and nutrition trip for students and staff to LPU. This is the perfect example of a multi-level partnership. The relationship was initially developed via our India office supporting on-campus recruitment, then by engaging academic staff to raise the profile of the programmes at Cardiff, and by utilising the funding available, this led to the follow-on staff and student trip. This then supported our outward mobility objectives as well as that of LPUs. This in turn developed closer links between academics at the institution, which led to joint research initiatives and now a number of exciting ideas around joint course development and transnational education. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the session, and I'll now pass you on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Adrian. As already mentioned, we're having a few technical issues with Lovely Professional University, so we're going to have a session with them again in future. So we'll move straight on to session 4, which is some 0 to 5 food industry case studies with Martin Sutherland. So if I can ask Martin to unmute himself and share his screen and enter PowerPoint presenter mode, please.
Okay, is that showing, Ed?
Yes, it is, but you still need to enter presentation mode, please, Martin.
Okay. Okay, is that fine, Ed?
That's fine now. Thanks,
Great,
Martin.
thank you. Yeah, I just a few slides just to give you an example of some of the great support that's available for companies that produce and manufacture within Wales, and is elaborating a bit on the Project Helix that Professor David Lloyd mentioned earlier on in this session. So Project Helix is a very innovative collaboration between industry, the Welsh Government and the 3 Welsh food centres, with 0 to 5 being one of those food centres. So it's a Welsh Government and European Union funded project. With Brexit, the funding will be solely transferred over to the Welsh Government, so this will carry on until 2023. And the intention of this project is to support the Welsh food and drink industry with support such as transferring knowledge. That the support can range from anything from 2 days to up to 3 years, so it can be both short-term and long-term in its intervention. It supports product manufacturers who produce across all product sectors, whether it be frozen, ambient, alcoholic drinks, confectionery. So we have expertise across all of those product sectors. And as I said, it's provided by the 3 Welsh food centres that provide support for companies throughout the entire country. Now, the priorities of the project were to drive innovation, to drive efficiency, and to ensure companies have a strategic approach to the way that they manage and operate their businesses. Now, the outputs, which are the outputs that we're targeted on, are to do with sales and profitability, the number of companies that engage, how much training is provided, the number of new products that are launched, the number of new markets that are accessed. So those new markets could be anything from securing listings with Tesco's through to securing providing products to McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, or it could be providing products to a local farmers market. So it could be both large scale and small scale. We've also had a large focus on encouraging startup businesses. And also, one of the key measures for us is to create new jobs. We've supported hundreds of enterprises over the last few years, delivering significant financial impact. And importantly, we believe that our role is to transfer knowledge. So we like to leave a legacy when we've worked with a company so that they can carry on prospering without the need for our support. So if we look at so the outputs on the right hand side there, just in the last 3 years, the 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre has supported 157 companies. We've launched over 300 products, over 129 new markets accessed, created over 210 jobs, and importantly as well, safeguarded 1,120 jobs. But perhaps the most important figure is the financial impact, and that's a combination of increased sales, improved efficiencies and waste reduction, and that's just a shade under £100 million. So that's a significant benefit to the companies that have participated. Now, David mentioned earlier, and I mentioned with regards to supermarkets, but one of the key supports that we provide is enabling companies to gain they're essential, the accreditation to demonstrate that the food is being manufactured in a safe and compliant way. And for any company contemplating entering into the UK market, securing the BRC or SALSA accreditation is absolutely vital. Now, we're not the only organisation to be providing support to the Welsh food and drink industry, but we like to think that as a result of our contribution, the industry is prospering. And the most recent economic analysis that we've looked at shows that the Welsh food and drink industry since the year 2000 has been the fastest growing region within the UK. And so if a company is contemplating setting up a UK base, Wales is probably one of the best places to consider because of the support that's available, both financial support from the government, but also from the support that's available from organisations such as 0 to 5 and Food Innovation Wales. So that's the end of my session, Ed. So is it time for the Q&A session?
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Martin. So as mentioned earlier again, we've had a few technical issues with Lovely Bake Studio, so we will be arranging a session with them in future. So we're going to move straight on to the Q&A session. I've already had a couple of questions in, but if there is anything you'd like to know the answer to, please just enter it into the Q&A box, and we'll try and get your question answered. The first question that we've had, and as I already mentioned, if I can ask the speaker who would like to answer this, please to just unmute and answer the question. The first question we've had in is, please can you tell me about the opportunities for Indian exporters and how to get buyers in the UK? So if there would be anyone who'd like to answer that at all.
Shall I take that one, Ed?
Yeah, please, Martin.
Yeah, I think in terms of approaching UK buyers, it really depends on which channel you're thinking of and what the strategy would be in terms of, is it food service, is it supermarkets, etc. Now, the advice for approaching the buyers, certainly for supermarkets, and it applies for most channels, would be to expect not to get a response. The buyers get inundated with requests for meetings, to list new products, so it's to be persistent. When I was working for supermarkets, we had a checklist really of what we would really be looking for from a new supplier. Top of that list would be reassurance around food safety, so that would be about accreditation. Secondly would be around, is the company professional, is it financially sustainable? And that can be, we would have checked that through on Companies House or through various data sources just to see how financially robust the business was. Third would be around, what is the company offering? What's different about the product or that's being offered? Is it branded? Is it own label? Is it cheaper? Is it better quality? So a really strong proposition. A fourth would be, will this business actually be able to service my requirements? Is there an account manager? Is there a salesperson actually in country that I can contact 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if I need to? And fifth would be, will this company provide me with 100% of what I order? So a really important measure for supermarkets and for all channels is availability or service levels. And if there's any doubt that an order won't be fulfilled, then the company won't get a listing. So in terms of approaching buyers, buyers don't like opening attachments to presentations because that takes too long. But I would suggest putting together a very, very brief introduction to the business, highlighting those 6 things that I mentioned around food safety, availability, product and how it's differentiated, etc. And be persistent. In terms of finding the buyers, LinkedIn is a very good way of doing that. Most UK buyers will be on LinkedIn, and I would start with the trade magazines. So the Grocer is a good way to find some of the buyers' names, or failing that, unfortunately, it's a case of trawling through LinkedIn, looking say with Tesco's, or Google searching, if it was say biscuit buyer Tesco's, see what name comes up, and then double checking on LinkedIn that name is still the buyer. There isn't a magic list that can be bought that gives you the names of the buyers, because buyers change probably every 12 to 18 months. Be persistent, expect not to get a response, but that would be my advice.
Could I throw something in?
Yes, please.
In terms of exporting into the UK, one of the things which Martin's department has done in the university is develop a directory of food companies in Wales. I mentioned there's about 1,000, and way over half of those have accepted the offer to put their companies within a directory. But there are various ways of getting your product on the shelf in the UK. One of them is the direct export, find potential distributor in the UK and go that route, as many Welsh companies do going abroad. But we have an extensive penetration of the sector in terms of our understanding and our links with managing directors of companies. And one of the areas we're looking to explore in Wales is potentially co-packing, because we have co-packers within Wales who sign confidentiality agreements and all the relevant legal entities to actually pack the product here. But also companies who you could buddy up with, who are manufacturers perhaps in the same product area as companies in India who are looking to break into the UK market. There are 18 subsectors in the BRCGS standard, and Wales has producers in each of those 18 subsectors. So the joy with Wales is it's large enough to make a difference, small enough to manage. But many of those companies will have SALSA or BRC, and so it might be an easy step into the retailers. Welsh Government and Food Innovation Wales, for that matter, can provide that link between companies wanting to export and potentially co-packing in Wales.
Thank you, David. Our next question is there any network where I can find manufacturers in India who understand UK food standards? Is there anyone who'd like to take that question?
Can you repeat the question, please, Simon?
Is there any network where I can find manufacturers in India who understand UK food standards?
I can take that one up. So we as UK IBC do provide that assistance depending on the product category in the realm of food and drink. So if someone has any specific product which they have in mind when they are looking for standards in UK for those, they can send us an email and we'll be happy to revert back with details on the same. As the standards can vary, and that can be a very extensive note for the entire forum. So we can take that on one-on-one basis.
Great, thank you much.
Sorry, can I add to that as well?
Well, yeah.
So just quickly to add to that, there's also the BRCGS directory.
Yeah, I was going to say
now that directory contains all businesses throughout the world who have been accredited by the BRC standard. And as it's a global food safety standard, you can go onto that directory, which is free, and you can look up any Indian food business which has already got the BRCGS accreditation. And it has contact details on there with the name, the address and contact information to be able to meet them. And it also has what their accreditation standard is and what type of products they produce.
Could I just chip in as well, please, Simon?
Of course.
Could I just point out to the delegates that the government departments would welcome any questions specifically related to government matters, and we've agreed that we'll follow these up outside the session, and we will collate these into a frequently asked questions response. But please keep the questions coming, because we will follow every single one up.
Thank you. The next question relates to job opportunities. The questions that I'll roll in together here. So the first one is, are there jobs readily available for MSc Food Science graduates? And there's another question that is, are there job opportunities available for recent graduates? So both similar questions.
OK, so I'll just join in quickly. Is that in the UK or is that in India?
It doesn't say, Simon.
OK, so I'll assume that is for anybody wanting to come into the UK. So if you're already UK based, it's quite a straightforward process. You know, you just apply for any jobs and it's relatively easy to get. If you are international and wanting to come into the UK, the challenge that you have there is that if you are a master's student, you need to earn at least £27,500 in the UK to be eligible to get a sponsorship. The company that you're applying for also needs to either already have UK VI sponsorship, which will cost them about £1,000 to get, and then they will need to sponsor you for that specific position. So in total, as a starting job, it would be looking at £28,000 to £29,000 as a starting position. Now, if you have got no experience and this is your first job, it's quite unlikely that you would be able to jump into a position in the UK straight away, because they would be offering you a salary that's normally someone that has 2 or 3 years experience anyway. So the idea and the best way to go about something like that is if you did a UK qualification, you know, like if you came to our university and did a master's course here, we do internships, and that will get your foot into the door to a food manufacturing company. Now, this year, we've had one of our master students who did very, very well during her internship year, and then the company have thought, you know what, she's really good, we're going to sponsor her to stay with our business and keep her on. So she now works full time within this Welsh food business as a result of this. And we've got another student who's just gone out on the internship, and she's been offered a similar sort of thing where if she does really well in her position over the next year, she will be offered an internship. She will be offered sponsorship as well for her job. So it's not impossible to get these, but you just have to realise that you're competing in quite a large marketplace with lots of UK people that are here. So you've got to be able to have something better than what they have. You've got to be able to sell yourself a little bit more to make the company warrant taking you on as a graduate.
If I could add a couple of comments there as well. As Simon already mentioned, the MSc in food science and technology in particular, with the opportunity to have an internship, is going to add a lot of value in terms of where you are looking for employment. What I would be saying as well to those prospective students that are looking to pursue a master's in food science and technology, there's a change in terms of government regulation where there is a graduate route entry position available now in terms of a visa which will allow you to work for 2 years post-study, and these are for graduates that would be looking to complete by the summer of 2021. So this will make it will increase the number of opportunities for students that are looking to gain employment.
Great, thanks, Adrian. Our next question is someone who is looking to grow avocados, a project where they grow avocados, farm them and sell them, and they're wondering how they could get in contact with the UK supermarket to discuss their project with them.
Shall I take that one, Ed?
Yes, please, Martin.
Yeah. The challenge there is to identify the buyers in the 10 or so supermarkets, and probably the easiest way to do that would be to Google. And that sounds obvious, but to find the names and addresses, sorry, the names and contact details, and then just to follow those names through on LinkedIn to find the contact details. Sending a speculative email to info@tesco.com isn't going to get a response, to be honest. So it's best to find the actual buyer. An alternative would be to contact a UK fruit or vegetable supplier who would probably have the contact details, including the phone number of the right person. And if you're introduced via an existing supplier, then there's more likely to be success. So that would be probably the best solution would be to find a UK existing supplier who is non-competing but is providing products in the same category, and ask them to help facilitate an introduction to the right buyers. And the best way to find that will be partly to go online to the supermarkets. All the supermarkets have got online stores, and so you can actually identify the suppliers through that. Unfortunately, a lot of the fruit and veg is sold loose, so it's more difficult to identify the actual suppliers from that. But a directory of leading fruit and veg suppliers should be available. I'm trying to think where that would be. And then make a direct approach to the UK producers. So there's two approaches: one via the producers, or one use LinkedIn and Google to identify the buyers in the supermarkets.
Can I add to that as well? So the other approach that you could take would be to think outside the box a little bit, and instead of wanting to take your product directly to a UK retailer, look at UK-based companies that would use avocados as a main ingredient that they sell a lot of, and go that route instead. So companies that produce a guacamole dip, for example, use a huge amount of avocados in their product. So you could look for food businesses that would make guacamole product and try and contact them to see if there is potential links available there.
And to top that up, Simon, we as UK IBC make introductions to the for the Indian businesses with UK stakeholders as well. So if someone is willing to get in touch with us, as there is a specific query about introduction with the retailers, I'll be happy to connect you with my colleagues sitting in UK who do expertise in this area and can assist you better.
Thank you very much. We've just got one more question that's come in, and that question is, are there any PhD research positions in the field of food science available at Cardiff Met University?
Okay, so I'll start that off. PhD opportunities do become available. You will have to go onto our research part of the website to see if there's anything online at the moment. We have had PhD opportunities in the past through 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre, and we've also had other ones available. There's also another organisation called Iseki Food, which is spelled ISEKI_food, and this is a European-wide food and engineering organisation, and they often put PhD-related opportunities on there. For that, though, you could be anywhere in Europe, really, not necessarily the UK. It's just where there's PhD opportunities. But a lot of the ones that are on there are either part or fully funded as well, so you may get paid for it if you go down that route.
Thanks, Simon. Is there anyone else who'd like to add anything on that or not? No. Okay. In which case, I'm going to hand it back to Simon just to say a few words to wrap up the session. And yeah, thank you very much, Simon.
Okay then, so we'll close now. Thank you very much to everybody for presenting here. It's been a fantastic couple of hours. Really, really insightful information from some real high-profile experts in the field. Now, I've only put my email address down here at the moment, but if you do have any comments or questions, please get in touch, and I can always forward to the relevant people regarding of what your questions or comments are. But from me, Simon Dawson, Cardiff Metropolitan University, and all of the guest speakers, I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening today. It's been a really good session. Thank you, and take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.